back to Conversations with Chris
and Crystal.
And today we're going to talk about a lot of different things.
Well, we are a discussion program. We are a conversation program. So we are conversing today.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
I was looking at some stuff online, and what is her name now? Kelly Clarkson, yes.
Okay.
I was reading stuff about her marriage.
Yes,
and
I heard about
husband,
that.
Her husband was a narcissist.
Yes.
And it was funny because she said the exact same words that I have said. It's like people can tell you and tell you and tell you till they're blue in the face, but you don't see it because you love this person.
Yes.
And then finally when you do wake up at all the hindsight, you know.
Right. It's like, my problem was I was so young I didn't understand when they said, "Oh, your mom's a narcissist." That's what all these counselors would say to me, and I'd be like, "Okay, I know Greek mythology, but I don't know how it translates to
she
real life."
Look in the mirror all the time.
Yeah. Well, actually, she did. In fact, a friend of hers, when she passed away, he had me on the phone for like 45 minutes about her, and he said, with your mom, it was all about her makeup and her hair. And I said, yes, that would be true. That was exact. But so it was a mirror thing. Well, but she could pass a mirror without looking. I do know other people who couldn't.
Yeah. Well, nobody would have called my ex a narcissist because he was ugly.
Okay.
But I mean, because you always assume, if you're a narcissist, I'm so beautiful or whatever.
Yeah.
But,
no, I had one that he was always, he'd always stop and look at his hair in the mirror, and yeah.
Yeah, but he didn't do it that way. He just liked manipulating people.
Yeah, that's a covert narcissist. I think they're able to manipulate like that.
Yeah, because he just loved to be able to control me, and I was so young and naive. I was like, I can, and empathetic. So I was like, I can see his point about this. So okay,
therefore I should change, or I should make it better, or I should fix it.
And now I just want to slap that kid. Wake up, moron!
And well, you should. But no, they don't get it. I'd hate that. Well, no, you wouldn't, because you're so used to blaming everybody else and not taking responsibility. That was something that I did a lot of. In fact, in this last job, I said to her, oh my gosh, I said, I forgot. 2 days ago I was going to call this place, and I forgot to call them. I'm going to call them right now. And she said, Crystal, if you hadn't told us, we would have never known.
True.
And I said, but I am an honest, upfront type of person, and I'm going to take responsibility for what I did and did not do. Mm-hmm. That's another thing. I do that with people, and I think they condemn themselves
because they don't do it.
Yeah, they're like, it's that self-condemnation. Mm-hmm. And of course, now if they have narcissism in them, they're blaming me for that. You created the problem because you caused me to think about what I'm doing. Yeah, you put that.
You're the thorn in their side.
Yeah, you put that religion up front. That honesty and all that kind of stuff. Heaven forbid we go that way. Yeah, it's interesting. It really is. I just wish, that she had. I would have. There was once upon a time. And for only one day, they put her in rehab to get off of the 36 prescription medication she was addicted to.
Wow.
I don't know what they brought her down to, but she was a totally different person when she came back. And I called her, and I was on the phone with her. My brother was there with her. And she said, Lowell, will you stop whirling and twirling, as she always said? Because he would pace and he would carry on. She said, will you stop whirling and twirling? I am trying to hear what Crystal is telling me about her new job. And I went, what? She's actually listening to me? And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. So this, that was a whole new concept that she actually acknowledged that something was going on that she wanted to hear about now. And it was like, wow. So I don't know if maybe as she got older and the meds became the issue, because I know she had tons of medication she was on, and prescription meds at that. It was doctors giving, it was back in the 70s when everything was a pill. Now they're doing it again. It's, history repeats itself. Here's a pill for that. Here's a pill for that. Here's another pill for that.
Well, ask your doctor if such and such pill will work for you.
Yeah, we have no idea what it's for, but we better ask them. Those commercials crack me up.
I just don't feel quite right, doctor. Is there a pill I can take?
I'm sure there is. Which one will give me the biggest kickback? We'll get that to you. Yes, immediately.
Oh, thank you.
The other day, I had some flowers, in a vase with water, and the water had gotten rancid, and how it gets slimy and all that kind of stuff, and it smelled. And this guy that was counseling me at the time came over to the house with another lady, and they were sitting there, and he said, "Ooh." He said, that's demonic there to have that slimy water. That's telling us that Satan is entering somewhere. And I'm like, okay, that's a little much. And then my dog, I had the dog on my lap, and it was like a familiar, they were saying. It's amazing what people will read into anything.
I don't know if you remember, but years and decades ago, there was this guy that had a pizza place right on the edge of Phoenix. There was this horror show every Friday night. Ed Muscari, do you remember him? Mm-hmm. Well, no. He would always talk about, I think it was Delbert's Diner, I think was the name of the pizza place.
Okay.
And so my friends and I, we went and ate there a few times, and then on Halloween, we ate there.
Uh-huh.
And they were all, they acted like they were Christians and stuff. They're like, God bless you, and this and that. And then found out later that from someone, I forget who, told us that on Halloween, they were saying that we were witches and I forget what they called the warlocks. They called the guys because we were all dressed up in Halloween costumes.
Right. Okay.
And they just said nasty things about us, and it was like, seriously, are you out of your gourd?
I know. It's just amazing how people get taken away with that stuff.
Well, and this is what I don't get, because the Bible says, "Judge not, lest you be judged."
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it seems like all these Christian people tend to judge other Christian people. And
Yep.
Like even my friend Marilyn, she wrote some Bible studies, right?
Right.
So this woman made fun of her, or several of them said, "Who do you think you are, Beth?" Somebody or other. I forget what the gal's name was. I had never heard of her.
Beth Moore.
Yeah, Beth Moore.
Beth Moore. Yeah.
And I was like, "Who's Beth Moore?" She said, "Oh, she writes Bible studies."
She
and
does.
I said, "Well, why can't you write them too?"
Yeah, she preaches too. Yeah.
So
teaches. Yeah. No, I know. It's just everybody's got an opinion, and everybody's critical. I think that's human, to criticize everything.
Nature, yes.
It is human nature
but
to
we're
criticize
supposed to
everything.
fight against that.
We are supposed to fight against that. I was thinking about that. Somebody was complaining about something, and one thing Pastor had said at church was, stop complaining and praise God. But everybody's still complaining. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, did we miss the sermon? Did we miss the, and not just complaining, but judging, this, that, this isn't working, and on and on it goes. And it's like, oh, wow, you guys, pull it together. Get a clue.
That reminds me of this thing I came up with. It's sort of a twist on what my friend Marilyn had put in one of her Bible studies, and what my saying is that I adapted is, stop whining, start shining.
Yeah, there you go. That's another good one. Yeah, absolutely. Being more helpful, being more trying to care about people and whatnot. And I do understand, like I said, I'm struggling with the fact that I went without love, most of my life, or any kind of way to express love.
Yeah, a distorted kind of love.
Yeah. I'm sure she had it there somewhere, and I can honestly say, no, I don't think that. But I just want to say, I want to hear myself say that. Mm-hmm. I want to believe that she did. And she would tell you, of course I love you, in her weird way.
Yeah.
And so it's hard for me to translate love into loving others.
I think she loved you as an extension of herself.
She did. It was narcissism.
More self-love than it was.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
it was. And I didn't understand that at the time. So I think I have a very distorted idea of love. I have felt love envelop me from God. I have felt what that feels like. It's amazing. I've asked him to do that again, but I still don't know what it looks like, walks like, talks like, and thinks like.
Yeah, it's a tough thing.
It is. And I notice other people that don't have empathy. These people, these Christian people who quote scripture to you because that's how you're supposed to be. You should do this. And it's like, well, but I'm human and I'm struggling, and I understand the concept. I understand what's being said in the Bible, but I'm human, and therefore I don't, and they'll tell you, oh yeah, everybody's on a different level, not everybody, can get through everything and all this kind of stuff. But I would like to get through everything. I would like to be able to put everything aside and just say, oh, out of here, go away. But I was listening to something about the fact that we have these things still in our life because they make us who we are. And
True.
God uses them to, change our personality or do different things. Yeah.
That's something that's always comforted me is the potter and the clay, because if you watch a potter and they're making a pot and something happens that it starts to fold and die, they'll just reform it and make it
Start
new.
over. Yeah.
And I always feel like he's done that with me.
Yes. Several times. Yes.
But also, you reminded me when I was suffering from depression, and I couldn't get out of bed some days because I was so depressed.
Yeah.
I was working at the music store, and there was this Mormon guy who worked there, and he was talking to me about it, and he says, well, you need to get into service for God, and blah, 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 and that'll take that depression right away. And all I could think of was my past church.
Yeah.
Because when I was in service for God there, I was pretty much as miserable as I ever was before I got depression.
Yes.
So it's like, that's not going to do it.
Yeah. And the other part about that, too, is you were younger then, and you were more impressionable, and you didn't have boundaries like we've talked about. Yeah. And so to continue to judge all churches by that church is probably something you could let go of.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I have. Because I had a really good church in my 20s.
Okay.
And they ended up, they didn't make it. And the pastor went back to Tucson. And I loved that church.
Yeah. No, I know. And that's a lot of the churches today. They're literally just disappearing. They just fold, for whatever reason. There's nobody to take it over. And that I can't conceive of because, I think our pastor was there 40 years when he started the church, and then his son-in-law came and took it over for another 30 years or so, and now there's new pastors there that I have no idea where they came from or who they are. I think my brothers know who they are, but the church still stands, and it still is a church, and it's also a school, but it does a lot of different things, and that's something. Where we used to live, I would drive down the street, and you could see down the block, you could see the church. There was a massive brick wall, kind of a thing built there, and I remember thinking that is my strong tower. Oh. Every day when I drove by, I'd go, there's my strong tower. There's God. That's where He is. I mean, He's with me, but that's also what I, indicative of, and so that
I found though that a lot of churches of my particular faith, there are a lot of really hypocritical and judgmental people there. So it is kind of hard to not keep your barriers up when you go to a church these days.
True. We've got a couple. I've got one of those at the church now. She has barriers up, and I've been told that that's just the way she is. But I don't know if I want to get close to her then.
Oh well.
Because they said once you do get through it, if it's that hard to get through it, and that person's not a friendly person like me, then I don't really know if I want a piece of that.
Well, I guess I could see that.
Yeah,
because they might bring you down.
Yeah. But
There's
a judgmental aspect to that. Let me put this wall up, and I'm not going to get close to you because I don't really know you. So there.
Yes.
And there's that coldness from them.
That's part of the conundrum of who I am, because it's like I put the wall up against like the church because I'm like, you guys, I don't want you guys trying to tear me down again and make me into that person I was as a teenager.
Yeah.
But yet I'm still a friendly person.
I'm always friendly, but when the people, these people are very cold and indifferent. It's like, or they'll answer my question and that's it. There's no other conversation. There's no other thought process. There's no other.
Like, did you need help with that?
Yeah, winning friends and influencing people, they are not. They don't want to influence anybody. They just want to stay away from everything. And honestly, now that I'm saying that, I'm kind of wondering to myself, is that a problem that I have? Is it because I am so open and honest and above board and forthright and in your face that it causes people to take advantage of me and walk all over me. Yeah, but you're hearing me. You're kind of going that direction because I've always done that wherever I've worked, and so that's where the 32 jobs in 23 years have come from, or 34 jobs in 23 years.
You know what I think our problem is?
What?
Because
I would love to hear this.
I think our problem is because you and I will be like, oh, I see this. I know how we can fix this.
Yes,
let's do
yes,
this.
we do.
And then we do it, and then they're like, oh, well, then let me just sit back and watch. And you can do it all,
That's what my mother did.
you know?
That's what my mother did. That makes total sense because we used to, she'd tell my brothers and I clean the house, and then she would just sit there and do nothing. And we were running around cleaning the house and doing all these different things. And one of the boys told me one time, he said, "You know what's fun about this?" He goes, "We're doing it together. The three of us, we're doing it together."
That was sweet.
Yeah, and I mean, he was all 6 years old at the time,
Oh.
but that's a lot coming from a 6-year-old. I mean,
Yeah.
he noticed it, he recognized it, he spoke it, and that was something we never got from her. And that's part of love, is working together
to accomplish a goal.
Yes, yeah. She wanted everybody to wait on her, so that's where that went, and it's hard. It's really, really hard. But that's me. I'm used to the fact that somebody's going to sit back and do nothing. And that's taking advantage of me. And because I'm that people pleaser, if you will, and that came from being with her too,
Maybe. So it's like, if you were in that situation again, maybe you could be like, okay, here's what we're going to do. Come and do it.
Yeah,
I
I know I've gone over this so many times before. When I interview for a job, because I should get a job looking for a job because I'm very good at it. When I interview for a job, there is something that still exudes from me that says, "Oh, we can take advantage of this person. Oh, she'll do everything for us, so we don't have to do it. She will, all this stuff." But the problem is that I have since learned how to make boundaries and how to say no. I'm
So
very
then
good
when
at
you
saying
get
no.
the
I can say
job-
no all day long. Yeah. So then I get the job and I get in there and I'm very helpful and I do a lot of stuff
And they're
I'm
expecting you to do everything.
and
you're
expecting
like,
you to do
"No."
everything, and then one day I go, "Oh no, I don't know how to do that." And I'm not interested in learning how to do that. I've got hundreds of things here I could do for you, but that one thing I can't do, and they just don't accept that.
Yeah.
I think part of it is because I'm a woman. I think women are expected to know how to do everything and do everything.
Well, and even if you don't know how, you're supposed
You're supposed to figure it out. Yeah, you're supposed to have all the answers. My brain no longer has the room.
Because we know each other,
Yeah.
it's not like I can watch you interview you to see what happens because I already
Yeah, you know me too well.
But
Yeah.
I would love to be able to be a fly on the wall and watch and see
Yeah.
just how they're
Manipulating it,
Yeah.
and it's subconscious. I'm sure it's not conscious.
Yeah.
Consciously, they're not doing that.
well, you never know.
Well, that's true. I do wonder. But this last job that I had, the girlfriend called me and she said, they're looking for a property manager, and she said, why don't you send me your resume? I'll give it to them. And then they called me to come in, and at the time it was very pleasant, and then I was let down because I thought I would be the only one. They got a resume from her, and there we are. And they said, "Oh, well, we have other people to interview," which I know is a pat answer. It doesn't mean they do. But when they did hire me, then they said, "Well, you were different from the others because," and there were so many red flags in that first week. "You were different from the others because they were property managers," which I was. I have been a property manager for 6 years. And they said, but it was beneath them to do filing and open the mail. Clue one. Yeah. And then within the first week, the boss said to me, "You know what you are? You're a doer. Whatever we ask you to do, you do it." And it was like, within reason. And I'm that type of person. I'm a problem solver. I, continue to move through things. And I'd like to think that people actually still have respect for me, and they don't. That's where I ran into problems. The other thing is it was not projects as assigned, it was projects as assumed, which again is a lack of respect for me as a person by just assuming I'm going to figure out that pile over there needs organizing, and Crystal will figure it out because she's an organizer. And I don't want to assume anything, and you know what that means, yeah, makes an ass out of you and me. But I don't want to assume anything, and I think it's a lack of respect to assume that I would just magically figure out what's going to happen without asking. Chris, is this something that you would be willing to do? Would you mind organizing all of these
that's
things?
Respectful to ask.
Yeah, what's the big deal? Yeah, I don't know if they're afraid. I'm going to say no because I do know how to say it. I know how to say it.
Well, but if they hired you thinking you're going to do everything anyway, why would they think you'd ever say no?
I know, that's it. They really do think, and I remember her giving me that one of those frames where the pictures go through automatically.
Oh,
Because it's a picture
that.
frame. Yeah, those are older than dirt. And it was for her mom, and I think one of the other relatives had given it to her, so their pictures were on there. And I literally, during COVID, I brought it home. I tried to figure it out. I couldn't get the cards to work. I wasn't going to open an app on my phone to move their pictures. That was out of the question. There were other ways to get on there, and I struggled and I could not figure out how to do it. So I brought it back and I said, this is something I cannot do. I don't think it's a horrible thing to say. I just couldn't do it. And within a minute, she wrote on a note on it and said, go to this company behind us and get their IT guy to help you. And he was gracious. He was a very kind guy, and he did show me how to do it, and we got it working. And then I took the pictures from, there were all these old pictures on her mother's, or her dad. Her dad had passed away, and there were all these pictures that I put together for them for the funeral. And that's what her mother said. I haven't seen some of these pictures in years. She goes, I would love to have that on my frame. So I went and moved those pictures to the frame because they were the only ones I had. And so I put them on there, and then I was so proud that I got it, and I brought it to her, and she looked at it, and she said, why does she want to look at her dead husband? And I gave up at that point because that is what they asked me to put on it. And I didn't even bother to tell her because it was such a waste of my time and my energy and my intellect. I think it was an absolute insult to my intelligence. And that was okay with her. Didn't bother her.
Here's another thing that disturbs me about jobs, because I've worked at jobs as a paralegal. And after you start the job, after I started this job anyway, the guy, the lawyer who hired me, he's all, okay, so once a week we have to clean the office and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, seriously?
Yeah, that was another thing, yeah.
Because to me, it's like, where do you draw the line? Because you're working for this person, but why would you have to clean the toilet?
I know.
And I wouldn't clean toilets. I refuse to clean other people's toilets. I just don't do that.
It really, it's amazing what they expect you to do. And then after I lost that job, then I went and interviewed very quickly. Again, I could look for a job. The guy was very nice, and I was very point blank with him about being like an HSP, highly sensitive person. And he's like, ooh, what's that? And then I told him, and then he said, oh, my daughter's one of those, and so we were relating, we were, communicating. And then I said, now, because I could see the job that they had doing it from home. It totally made sense to me. It was just like 20 hours a week. It was in Tempe, so why drive all the way over there when I could do it from home?
Got you all excited about it.
Yeah. And then I said, have you considered doing this from home? And he said they had 2 property managers in there. He was a realtor, and then there would be me. This was the admin. Now there's no property management going on here. And he said, well, you're the most important job in here. And I thought, oh God, not again. Because that means you're the one that they're feeding off of your energy, and they're draining you daily. I don't know why people don't get this. they're
Oh, I
drained.
think they do.
They don't. I mean, they don't see it happening.
Well, I mean, the ones that are doing the draining, I
Yeah.
think that
They think they do. They're bloodsuckers.
I
They're
think they are.
vampires.
I think they are.
Yeah. So because it's getting a job done. That's what I want to be. I don't need to be the personality in the room.
You don't.
I don't need to be the cut up, the comedian. I don't need to be. And that's the other thing that I think, I had a tooth missing in front because it broke, and on it goes. And they removed it, and they had trouble getting it to work out. And honestly, I think that was one reason why I got fired off that last job, because she just, because she was very passive aggressive, and she stood there and she looked at me and she said, well, after all, she goes, you are the first person that everybody sees. You are the company. You represent the company because you're sitting in the front chair. It's like, no, that's not necessarily the definition of that. If you look in the dictionary, that does not part of the definition. But I think she was upset about that because I think it took me 2 years to get that tooth fixed. And I think she was upset by how I looked. But she couldn't say that.
Well, even so.
But she said it.
It's rude. I mean.
It is rude. Yeah, it was rude. But that's what people do. Yeah, discrimination for having a hole in my head, literally.
Well, I look back on my long and storied career, and I think, there's so many places that I've worked where these people were just evil.
They were. I've had those too. Yes.
Like this one place I worked for 3 years, and the third year, the woman who ran the place decided she hated me. I think because I had better grammar than her, and she asked me to correct her mistakes on these things. I corrected the mistakes, and she hated it.
I know they do hate that.
So she decided to get rid of me, and so they started making up these allegations that I smelled like cats. Well, I had the same cats all 3 years. Why all of a sudden would I be smelling like cats?
Yeah, right.
I sprayed myself down with Febreze clothing spray.
Yeah.
My friends all smelled me and said, "Oh, you don't smell like anything now."
Yeah.
And they still continued with this garbage about me.
It's garbage.
So I looked for a job, and as soon as I got one, I didn't even give them any notice. I left a Post-it note on my desk saying, "I quit."
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it just I even in that last one too, it was so funny because she said, well, because I ended up getting COVID, and I called somebody from the office because I said, where can I go get tested? This was way back. And so she knew, and she had this funny sound to her voice. And I thought, wait a minute, something's wrong. And I went online from home because I used to be able to get into the computer, and I couldn't anymore. They had changed the sign-on. And we were slated to talk on Monday, which now I had COVID, so I couldn't go in. So we had to wait till the next week. But my boss texted me and said, well, as I see it from our last meeting, you decided you wanted to go somewhere else, and we're just fine with that. And I said, no. I said, from my recollection of the last meeting, we were going to speak again on Monday about what we want to do about this. And it what gets to me is it was basically a servant position. It was basically a slave position, not even a servant. I understand serving.
They had you doing stuff that you shouldn't even.
Yeah, no, you shouldn't have been doing. Yeah, and I, because I've owned my own businesses before, I've opened mail and I've filed, and I know how to do that. I know that people do that, and they always told me, when I interviewed with them, they said, "Oh, we have nothing against doing filing ourselves. We're more than happy to get in there and file," but nobody ever touched it. Yeah, so that was the point. Even when I went on vacation, I came back, it was completely full because nobody touched it. Nobody could do it.
That's like that lawyer that I worked for one time. It was a part-time job. I worked the afternoons. This other lady worked in the morning. She was super sweet, super nice. And we were supposed to share all of the duties. Well, one day I started noticing when I came in, the same stuff was in the filing to be filed pile that was there the day before. And I was like, is she not helping me anymore? Well, two can play this game, so I left it. And it got higher and higher. So finally, she came to me, I think at his, prodding.
Yeah.
And said, did he not talk to you about the changes that we're doing here? I said, what changes? No, he didn't say a word to me. And she said, well, he's decided he wants you to do the filing. So because I do more, at the time I was a legal secretary and she was more of a paralegal. Okay. So she had more of the other stuff to do. So she said, I was afraid he was going to do that. And she ended up leaving, and we had lunch at other times, and she gave me more of the scoop about him. Well, when I left, I interviewed for another job somewhere else, and the guy told me afterwards, he says, "You are a super nice person, and I only picked this other person because they had a little more experience than you, but I did want to tell you, because you're so nice, I wanted to tell you, you got to get that guy's name off of your references, because he gave you a bad reference, and you don't deserve that."
Yeah.
And that really made me mad. It's like, how can you be that miserable that you would do something like that?
Yeah, for sure. The hard part to understand is they will never change.
Yeah.
Unless they find God, and God can change people, but even then, I think you have to remain careful, mindful of it.
Yeah. And that's the sad part too, because you have that family link.
Yeah.
And like we were talking years before about the links that you have with someone, the spiritual link that you have to sever with some people.
Yes,
and,
yes.
yeah, and that's a really strong bond. And
it is, and that I mean, I right up to the very last day of my mother's life had really prayed and believed that she could change. Yeah. And I had been told for years, no, she's never going to change. Narcissism does not go away. They do not recognize that there's an issue here. Yeah, how can you not?
Because it's your problem. It's not theirs.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. They blame everybody else. That's right. That's very true. So that's the hard part. And so this poor child now, who's older now, says, "Yes, I'd like to see my mother." For what? She has nothing to give. She had nothing to give. Unless, like I said, unless she's found God and she's actually making some effort to change her ways, whatever that looked like at the time. We hope that you'll share your thoughts with us below, or email us and let us know what you think about some of these things, or conversations that you'd like to hear us converse about. Yeah, converse about. Yes, absolutely. So remember, take care of yourself, because nobody else will. Bye for now.